Hello, everybody. This video is going to look at the second stage in the 4 stages of paragraph writing. So we will look at how to cite your sources and how to make the text cohesive. So let's get into it. So this is an example text. I have done the paraphrasing, and then the next stage is to add the in-text citations to the text. So the first way I can do this is I can just include the whole text as a paraphrase. And then I put the first in-text citation at the beginning and the second in-text citation at the end. And then the reader is fairly certain that all of the information between those two citations comes from the same source. It is better to make the text completely cohesive, as we will look at later on. But this basically gives an indication that everything between those two citations is from that article. So in this case, it's a non-Korean. It looks like a British or American writer. So we use the second name, the family name in this case. So Michael Watson, Watson is the family name. Joseph Smith, Smith is the family name. 2019 is the year of publication. So we use both names. We put one at the start with the word and in the middle, and the second one with the and sign called an ampersand. We put the whole thing in brackets or parentheses. We put the period at the end and the comma just before. In-text citations are also called in-text references. So if I say reference, it's the same thing. And there are many different styles of in-text citations, but in this course, we will use APA 7 citations. So this is the information from the APA 7 website. What you need to do is to find the number of authors in the article. So you look at the top, I will show you this, and you see how many authors or writers there are. If there's one author, two authors, or three or more, there are different conventions or different ways of doing the in-text citations. So let's take a look. If there is one author, then what you need to do is either put the name at the end after the information. So we put it inside the parenthesis, the family name, a comma, then a space, then the year of publication, then the second parenthesis, the second bracket, and then we put the period if it's the end of the sentence. Or we can use it as the grammatical subject. And in that case, we need a reporting verb, which we will look at later. And then we continue the sentence. Okay, so those are the two ways of doing it. We can either put it after the last piece of information. So that's the first example here, or before the first piece of information. And that's the example given here. If there are two authors and we decide to put it after the last piece of information, then again, this is the first one. So we put it at the end of the sentence, let's say. We put the whole thing inside brackets or parentheses. We use the first family name. We use the and sign. We use the second family name. We put a comma. We leave a space. Then we put the year of publication. Then we put the second bracket or parenthesis. And then if it's the end of the sentence, we need to put the period or full stop at the end of the sentence. If it's before the piece of information that you used from the paraphrase, then this will be the subject of your sentence. So it would be followed by a reporting verb. For example, Kendall and Watson, 2015, claim that. So they claim that, blah, blah, blah. So this comes at the end of the sentence, probably with a period or full stop. This comes at the start of a new sentence, and it forms the beginning of a regular sentence. If there are three authors, then it's a little bit different. In this case, we use et al. So this is three or more authors up to 20. Et al means and others and other writers. So we don't need to write the names of all of the writers. So if there are three or more writers, we just write et al. So in this case, we can put it after the last piece of information. In this case, we open the brackets, we write the family name et al, and then we have a period and a comma and a space, then the year, then the second parenthesis or bracket, and at the end of the sentence, we put the period. And then if you put it at the start of the sentence, This will be the subject of the sentence. So in this case, the sentence might continue, O'Keefe et al., 2016, find that. So notice in this case, the year is in parentheses. In the previous case, the whole thing is in parentheses. So that's the same in all of the three examples. The use of parentheses is the same. So that's when there are 3 or more authors, up to 20. Okay, so that's the first thing. If you use only one sentence at a time, or only one sentence from a source, then you need to put the in-text citation in that sentence. So we have an example here. This is just one sentence, capital letter at the beginning, a period at the end. It's one sentence. So in this case, we must include the in-text citation. You have a choice. You can put it at the start. In this case, you use the word and, or you can put it after the information at the end of the sentence. In this case, you use the and sign. So that's for one sentence from an article, or one sentence, and then it could be followed by a sentence which is the writer's own evaluation. And then again, you would need to recite the citation in the next sentence. So this indicates that the first sentence comes from the research article. There is no citation in the second sentence. So this indicates that it's the writer's opinion in this example. And then this sentence here is again from the same article. We need to recite it to make it clear to the reader that this is not the writer's opinion, but another sentence from the research article. So if you take one sentence from the article, always include a citation somewhere in that sentence. If it's your own opinion, you do not need a citation in the sentence. So the use of citations helps the reader to understand which sentences come from the research article and which sentences are the writer's own opinions. So unlike these previous examples, if you use more than one sentence from the original text, you need to make it cohesive by linking the sentences together. So this is the second stage. We talked about cohesion a little bit. Here's the dictionary definition. So cohesion refers to the construction of individual sentences and the clear relationships you establish between them. So I would say linking or connecting the different sentences in the paragraph together in a logical way. That's cohesion. So it could be done like this. So we have the first sentence, there's a citation for Watson and Smith. And then in the second sentence, we don't need to do another citation. We can just say they argue that. This means Watson and Smith. In the next sentence, again, instead of putting the citation again, we can say their research also shows. And in the next sentence again, we don't need to put the citation if we refer back to the research and say the research shows. So in each of these cases, the words the research, their research, and they argue all refer back to Watson and Smith. So this is what makes the text cohesive. The second feature that makes the text cohesive are the linking words like firstly, moreover, and in addition. So these are linking languages for sequence and addition in these cases. Okay, so let's look at this again. So the parts in yellow, as I previously said, make it absolutely clear that we're writing about the same source. And because it's clear, we don't need to recite it. So this is the first principle of cohesiveness. Linking the different parts of the paragraph together also means making it clear to the reader that those sentences are from the same research article. And in that case, we don't need to keep citing the same source again and again in each sentence. Okay, so linking language can refer back to the source, and linking language can, cohesiveness can refer to linking back to the original source, and making the text cohesive also can mean linking language. This is also called discourse markers or transitions sometimes. So you need to think about the reporting verb when you're making the text cohesive. So when you refer back to the source, you need a reporting verb. Use a variety of reporting verbs. So examples would be the research shows or confirms, the research demonstrates or argues, the writer claims or the writer highlights, the writer's claim, the writer's content, they demonstrate, they argue. So these are all examples of ways to begin sentences to make the text cohesive. So just put these at the start of the sentences and you will connect your text together and make it cohesive. Also, you need to make sure that the reporting verb has a suitable meaning. Is it strong? Is it neutral or weak? So here are some examples in the table. So strong reporting verbs would be assert, insist, emphasize. So Mr. Smith asserts this, means it's a very strong opinion. The safest one to use are neutral ones like observe, report, and explain. These appear to be more scientific. And then if you're doubtful or the writer seems to be doubtful, you can use words like speculate or imagine. A full list of reporting verbs is available here. You can check those when you're writing your paragraph. Okay, let's move on to linking language and transitions. So we will look at some basic examples like adding, contrasting, sequencing, and giving examples. So it depends on what you're doing. This is a table that will give you the full range of discourse markers that you can use. So if you're sequencing, which is very common, we use words like firstly, secondly, or meanwhile. So those were used in my example paragraph. You might want to explain cause or effect or add information. So adding is obviously very, very useful. So they will probably be used in your paragraph. If it's an example, you need to use the appropriate discourse marker, and also for things like contrast, drawing conclusions, and so on. Okay, so my advice for using discourse markers is don't put them in every sentence. Around about a half of the sentences should have discourse markers, maybe less. So maybe 1/3 to 1/2 is a sensible guideline. Vary the type of discourse marker in the paragraph. So if you say firstly, secondly, thirdly, fourthly, fifthly, sixthly, of course, it gets very, very boring really, really quickly. So use variety. That's good advice. And as I said already, you can often use discourse markers for sequencing and adding to the structure of any paragraph. So they're probably the most common ones. Okay, so the final text looks like this. We add the linking language or the discourse markers in green. We've added the language to make it cohesive at the start of the sentences. And now that section of our paragraph is completely finished. So now we're ready to move on to the final stages of paragraph writing. You can check this using the worksheet, the same worksheet. So stages 1, 2, and 3 were to check the paraphrasing, and stage 4 is to check the cohesion and citations in the final paragraph. So do the paraphrasing first, check using stage 1, 2, and 3 on the worksheet, then make the text cohesive, and then check using the questions for stage 4 on the worksheet. Take screenshots of everything or photographs of everything and upload it to your folder, and you will get the participation score for the class. Okay, so that's it. Next week, we're going to look at evaluating the significance. If you want to preview that, the video link is here. So thanks, everybody. I hope you found these videos and the worksheet helpful in writing your paragraph. Okay, goodbye.